Thanks to Pain here, coming to you guys with a video on side decking. Now, side decking may not seem really that hard at first, and to people who are experienced players, side decking isn't actually that hard. But for beginners or people who are new to competitive play, or people who are just building a new deck, side decking might be a little harder for you, so hopefully this video will help out. This video will be consisting of two parts. The first part describing on what you should think about as your side deck, and then the second part will be on a list of cards you can side deck and why. Well, this part, I'll start with the discussion. What you should think about as you side are these following things: your weak matchups, meta, your playstyle. Those and is it entering your deck? And those are like four major things you should think about as your side deck. Yeah. So let's start with the weak matchups and strong matchups. Well, if you're already good against a matchup, I wouldn't really side any more against it. But if you have a weak matchup, let's just say your weakness is windups, then you would side a little more heavier into that. Like, you would probably side Matsies and Veilers if you don't already run those in the main. And if you do, you probably side in something like, I don't know, you probably side in something like Skill Drain or something. Something that will stop their effects and stop them from being able to OTK. And that's the plus off their special summoning, so you can draw the Veilers and then use it to stop the OTK. So yeah, that's one part. And you make sure you don't overside for one matchup. Even just because you have a weak matchup doesn't mean you should overside for it. Like, let's just say you're playing as heroes, and you have in your side deck multiple cards that can be sided against heroes. Let's just say you have, I don't know, triple T-King, triple World Decree, and triple Prohibition or something. Just because you can side all those cards against heroes doesn't mean you should. Because if you do, it might mess up the flow of your deck and its consistency. And doing an overside can make you draw into all the side cards, which is a little bad. Like, drawing a T-King in that scenario wouldn't be that bad, but let's just say you drew 2 Decree, 2 Prohibition, and like an MST and some other useless card in that scenario. That would be pretty bad, so make sure you don't overside for a matchup. In that scenario, if I were to side against heroes, I'd probably just side in 2 Decree, 2 Prohibition, and 2 T-King just to stop their searchings, and 2 is enough. Prohibition, so I can probably call Miracle Fusion and MST, so they can't destroy Prohibition as easily. And also, I would side in Decree because, again, heroes run tons of traps, and negating the traps will probably take away a third of their deck. So, yeah, and considering they don't run that many monsters, that many monsters in the main deck, it should be pretty easy after you lock down their only ways of defending those monsters. So that's the first part about your weak matchups. The second part would be focusing on what did I say? Oh yeah, you should. The second part would be knowing your play style. Knowing your play style is very important. That should be pretty simple. That would be pretty easy to figure out. If you're a type of person who loves to keep attacking, then you obviously have an offensive play style. But if you're a guy who's very conservative, likes to hold on to cards, doesn't like to be, too aggressive, you always are a little cautious, then you're more of a defensive or conservative type player. And if you're a mixture of both, then you're all round. So that's like, I just categorize it in the offensive, defensive, and all round. That's how I categorize playstyles. So if you use to offensive playstyle, like I said earlier, but you side cards that will slow down your deck, and make a defensive playstyle, it's not a bad thing. But but it could mess you up. So you have to know when to use the sided cards, as well as making sure it doesn't harm you. But that goes on to my third point. Making sure it works with your deck. Like if you're playing Heretics and you want to decide against Mermails and Dark Worlds at the same time, okay, when Soul Drain came out, you thought, okay, we use Soul Drain. But some people don't think that, oh shoot, Soul Drain also hurts my deck. So since Soul Drain also hurts Heretics, Soul Drain isn't really worth running in a Heretics side deck. So you have to find alternative. Alternatives to that could be, if you really want to side against Dark Worlds, then you can just side in Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. If you want to have a grayer side, then you can use Debunk as well. A good replacement for the free Soul Drain would be 2 Shadow Imprisoning and 2 Debunk. The problem with that is that it's 1 extra card more, so you have 1 less extra side deck space, but you know, it balances out. But that's besides the point. So just realize that some cards could potentially hurt your deck as well as help you. Now, I have seen people run the Kree when they run like 9 or 10 spells. Like quite a few Injector decks actually cite that. That I've seen at least, but I mean, they make it work. If you can make it work, that's good for you. They know how to use it and when to use it. But if you're running something like Heroes or Chainburn, I really do not recommend you running Royal Decree. I mean, especially in Chainburn when a lot of your burning stuff comes from spells. I mean, not spells, traps. So, yeah. And on to another point of mine, which I'm starting to forget, I'm sorry, but you have to know your cards. Know the card rulings. You have to know the card rulings, know what the effects does and says exactly, which should be pretty obvious, but you should also know multiple cards. Like, don't always use the same, like, don't always use obvious side cards, like, okay, Maxi, Veiler, okay, those are staples, but I mean, don't always use the same cards. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, you have to. Sometimes it's good to be a little creative in the side deck, because I mean, I've seen this guy just run random morph in jar number 2, and it's a wind-up deck. That's a nice little side deck against wind-up. So you can think of something like that. But yeah. But seriously though, just find creative things or things that no one will expect could give you a little edge too. Like, when let's just say your weakness is a macro deck, okay? Like Macro Rabbit. Generic cards people will side against that would be Royal Decree. Or maybe even Imperial Iron Wall. But there is an alternative to that. There's Chaos Hunter. Now, Macro Rabbit players would not really know what to expect from Chaos Hunter, since most people probably never even seen or heard of that card before, especially newer players. So I'll describe what it does, and this card will be mentioned later in a bit as well. Chaos Hunter is a level 7 Dark type monster, 2500 attack. Its effect is when a monster spells summoned to your opponent's side of the field, special summon this card from your hand, and your opponent cannot remove any cards from play. So, if I remember the rulings on Chaos Hunter, then your opponent's cards Macrocosmos and Macrocosmos on their side of the field, and it removes your cards from play as well, and I don't believe that they can remove your cards, so yeah. I might be wrong that ruling that Chaos Hunter can stop Macro, but if it doesn't, then at least it works well against Chaos Dragons, because if you do it on Chaos Dragons, they can't spell summon Pulsar, BLS, Chaos Sorcerer, Dark Flare, or they can't use Dark Arm Dragon's effect to banish a Dark until we get rid of Chaos Hunter. So, yeah, it makes Chaos summoning a little bit harder. But yeah, those are the main things I want to talk about for this segment of the vid, and pretty soon you guys should see a list of cards, and I guess that will be on my computer. So I'll see you guys in a few seconds. I finally got on my laptop, and to continue off from earlier in my vid, I'm gonna give you guys 34 cards that you can use to side in your deck, and I'll explain why. And for what decks. We'll start out with DD Crow. DD Crow is a good card just because you can you can start a card to banish one card in your opponent's graveyard. So if you know your opponent's deck relies heavily in the graveyard, then DD Crow will be a good side. It's probably best used in Chaos Dragons just for the plain fact that it's a dark type, and it's also good against dragons in general and injectors because, alright, if your opponent's playing dragons, then you can banish their darkness spell and they lose a little bit of oomph in their deck. Also, it's also good against injectors because again you can banish the hornet or you can banish the dragonfly that's in their grave. So if you banish the dragonfly, they lose their um, easiness for they lose pretty much their main shot of winning, but if they still have a chance. If you banish their hornet, they lose their way of popping your cards. So D Crows is a good card in general. The only weakness of this card is if you're playing against a deck that's sided macro or dimensional fissure, because D Crow doesn't get its effect unless it goes to the graveyard. Next is Effect Veiler. It has the same flaw as DD Crow, but it's a hand trap like DD Crow. Uh, Veiler's effect is during your opponent's main phase, you can send this card from your hand to your graveyard, target one face-up effect monster your opponent controls, and gain that target's effect into the end phase. I wish it said destroy, but that would be broke. Too broke. Anyway, Effect Veiler is a really good side card, especially against Master Rabbit not Master Rabbit, wind-ups along with Matsy. But it's still good against Master Rabbit as well because you can negate the effect of Rabbit. And it won't be able to get its special summon. It's really good against wind-ups too, you can stop their OTK. It's just a pretty good side card, and it does rely a lot on field effects. The only flaw is that it can only be used during your opponent's main phase, so it's not really that flexible of a card, but it's still pretty good. And it's a tuner, so you can sometimes synchro with it. Next, Maxi. Maxi is a level 2 insect type monster with 500 attack, 500 defense. Its effect is during either player's turn, you can send this card from your hand to your graveyard. This turn, each time your opponent special summons a monster / monsters, immediately draw one card. You can only use one Maxi per turn. So, like I said, this is really good against windups, but it's also good against decks that can spam like Heretics, Six Sams, the random occasions of you playing against Black Wings and stuff, and Agents as well, because if they use Venus's effect, I believe that's the card. Yeah, Venus. And they go for Shine Balls. You draw one for each Shine Ball. So yeah, and again, like I said, Six Sams and windups spam a lot. And if you're playing against windups, you might be able to draw into this, and that can stop their OTK. Next is just Slow Man Eater. He's okay in my opinion. I wouldn't use him in my deck, but he's good in other decks because first of all, he can pop a card. Second of all, it's good deciding heroes because it gives you another target for absolute 0. So yeah, that card's broke. So whatever. And it's somewhat okay to side in windups or against them, but whatever. Morphing Jar number 2. This card is not really cited much, but I believe it should be, especially in its windups. I watched Starstrike do this video. Shout out to her, by the way. She did a death profile, and the guy who she did that profile on, he said a story about how in the tournament he set Morphing Jar number 2, a wind up monster attack. He sent all 4 of his XYZ monsters back to the extra deck, and his opponent only got one special summon off of Morphin Jar 2's effect. So yeah, so it's pretty good size its windups, as well as sometimes you might be able to special summon some monsters of your own as well. So it's a pretty good card. Uh, Fossil Dyna. Fossil Dyna is extremely good card, but it's not for every deck. If your deck is a deck that special summons a lot, like Heretics, Wind-Ups or something, then you definitely do not want to be playing this card. But, I mean, in decks like Rot Stun or decks that don't special summon that much, like anti-meta decks, Fossil Dyna will probably be a perfect card against a lot of matchups. Like, it'll be good against especially Wind-Ups. It's good against Sam's. It's good against Yugioh Karakuri. It's just good against a lot of things. Plus, the funny part is when your opponent summons Photon Papilloparat, whatever how you pronounce that name, Photon Papilloparative. Okay, and the use of effect, Fossil Dyna is split, and your opponent loses all their monsters. So that's pretty funny. Thunder King Rai-Oh. Thunder King Rai-Oh is pretty much somewhat of a staple if he's not mained. Um, it stops annoying searches from heroes and gear card queries. He can also negate inherent special summons, so that's pretty cool. And it stops pod duality plays, so yeah. Koaki Murudredo. Now, this card is sort of narrowed down for specific decks. Like if you're playing Heretics, um, Disaster Dragons, and maybe Chaos Dragons, although I don't really see why. How you can play in Chaos Dragons, but whatever. This card stops light and dark special summons, so um, again you can use it against Dark Worlds, Chaos Dragons, Heretics, use it against Agents. It's just a really good card, but it's only meant for some decks. Next, Cyber Dragon. Cyber Dragon should only be cited if you have Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon in your extra deck. It's super good against wind-ups, good against gadgets, good against Machina gadgets, sometimes good against wind-ups. It's just a really good card along with this, just to wipe out your opponent's monsters and get a big one of your own. Next, Chaos Hunter. Chaos Hunter is a card that I don't really see cited, but I'll read its effect. When your opponent spell summons a monster, you just discard one card to spell summon this card from your hand. Your opponent cannot remove cards from play. So, alright, if you're playing against Chaos Dragons, alright, they special summon a card, big deal. You special summon Chaos Hunter, they can't banish any card. They can't you can't use special summon for Chaos monsters like Chaos. They can't use summon Chaos Sorcerer. They can't summon BLS. They can't banish Wyvern by any means. Yeah, so they can't banish anything. And if I remember the ruling on this card, which I'll look up after the vid, and if I'm wrong, I'll correct myself. But if I remember right, if you're playing against Macro Rabbit and they have Macrocosmos on the field, I don't think that Macrocosmos can banish any card, whether it's their card or your card. So I have to make sure in that ruling. But either way, if you have this card in the field, they can't banish Rabbit, so they can't get the special summons off of Rabbit. That's Gore's Emissary of Darkness. It's just there to stop OTKs. That's it for the monsters. Then we'll go on to spell cards. Dimensional Fissure. Variants that rely heavily in the graveyard, like Heretics, Chaos Dragons, Insectors, Dark Worlds, and many other decks as well. MST, just in case you don't run 3, which I do see some people run 2 instead of 3. Night Beam is just extra card for you to blow up back row with, and they can't activate the card as a response. Prohibition is a really good card, and I would recommend this running at least at 2. You can potentially lock down your opponent's deck with this card. You declare one card name, and cards that name and their effects cannot be used. Cards already on the field are not affected, including face down cards. So it's a really good card. Smashing Grounds just used to pop up your opponent's monsters. Soul Release is again a really good card in case you can't run cards like Dimensional Fissure or Macro Cosmos. Soul Release will banish 5 cards in your opponent's graveyard and move. It's all banish up to 5 cards. So it's a really good card. Soul Taker, just to make Elemental Hero shiny and like Pulsar mistiming and Pots monsters on your opponent's side of the field. System of a Down. Oh no, sorry, that's the band. System Down um, is good against windups, and it's good against Gyria Karakuri as well as gadgets. Breakthrough Steel is coming out in Cosmo Blazar and will possibly replace Effect Veiler. But this card is, again, a really good card if you don't main it as well because it negates effects twice. Once anytime, and the second time has to be on your turn when you banish this card from the graveyard. And it can't be activated the same turn that it was sent to the graveyard. But other than that, it's a really good card. Chain Disappearance against Heretics, against Inceptors. Okay, card. Debunk is really good against Dark Worlds and Mermails. In case you can't run cards like Shadow Imprisoning or you can't run cards like Soul Drain either because they harm your deck, Debunk is a good alternative. Dimensional Prison, just in case you want to switch out cards so you can actually banish their resources instead of just destroying them. Dust Tornado is the same reasoning as Night Beam and MST, an extra card to destroy the pop back row. Goes in Match is is only good if your deck runs most of the cards or all the cards with the same attribute. Like if you're running Harass, it's a good side deck for you. You can side this against Sit Sams. You can side this against windups. You can side this against Chaos Dragons because they only have either light or dark, not both, so that'll limit their resources a little bit. But yeah, those in matches will limit your opponent's plays. Although there are decks that do run all darks and all lights and stuff like that, but yeah. Imperial Iron Wall, same reasoning as Chaos Hunter, except no card at all to be moved in play. So just in case I was wrong about the ruling on this card, you can try this instead. It will stop Boundless, it will stop Deprison, it will stop your Darkness Mode from being special summoned from the hand. It will stop Chaos cards like BLS, Chaos Sorcerer, Dark Flare, Special Summon, and Light Pulsar Banishing Special Summon effect. Light Imprisoning Mirror is just really for Heretics, if that's your worst matchup. That's about it. Macrocosmos, get rid of your opponents, if you're, again, for graveyard heavy decks. Mirror Force, in case your deck doesn't really run much back row, but your opponent's deck swarms, but you don't want to blow up your field. Mirror Force. Rivalry of the Warlords is really only good if you control one type of monster, like if you're playing a deck that runs all dragons or a deck that runs all warriors. World Decree is a really good card, negates traps. It can slow down Macro Rabbit, it will stop heroes back row almost completely. Yeah, it's a really good card. Shadow Imprisoning is good against Dark Worlds and Zeptors. Stops their effects. Soul Drain. If you can run Soul Drain, I would run it over either one of these two. And probably even this one. Soul Drain. Well, probably I would side this as well as Soul Drain, maybe, but I'll probably run 3 Soul Drain because effects that activate in the graveyard or the effects of monsters that are banished that start or effects cannot be activated as long as they start a chain. So it stops Mermails, Dark Worlds, and stuff like that. And Torrential Tribute in case your opponent plays a Swarm deck and you just want to have a way to wipe it out. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the side deck video. Please remember to rate, comment, subscribe. If you have any more side deck cards that I probably might have missed, then please post them in the comment section below. Tell me if this was helpful, and I'll see you guys next time.